The history of Mount Cristo Rey is a profound tapestry of geological antiquity, frontier borderland history, and an enduring spiritual devotion that physically reshaped a mountain long before it became an internationally recognized Catholic pilgrimage site. The 4,675-foot limestone and igneous peak in Sunland Park, New Mexico, was known as Cerro de los Muleros, or Mule Driver's Mountain. For centuries, this rugged elevation, situated directly on the Rio Grande Rift, served as a vital navigational landmark for Spanish explorers, missionaries, and indigenous peoples navigating the harsh Chihuahuan Desert. The natural bowl-like valleys at the base of the mountain provided a secure corral for the mule trains traversing the historic Camino Real de Tierra Adentro. Later, during the Mexican Revolution, the peak briefly took on the moniker Orozco Hill, named in honor of the Revolutionary General Pascual Orozco, as the high ground offered unparalleled strategic views into Ciudad Juarez and El Paso. Yet, despite its rich frontier history, the mountain's ultimate legacy would be defined not by war or commerce, but by a bold, spiritual vision that emerged during the depths of the Great Depression. The spiritual transformation of the mountain began in 1933, with Father Lourdes F. Costa, a Catholic priest serving the working class, heavily Mexican-American parish of San Jose in Smeltertown. Smeltertown was a bustling, polluted industrial company town situated right on the banks of the Rio Grande, directly at the foot of the mountain. Looking out of the back window of his parish residence, Father Costa would gaze upon the stark, jagged peak of Cerro de los Muleros. Inspired by a papal encyclical from Pope Pius XI that called for worldwide monuments to commemorate the 1,900th anniversary of the coming of Christ, Father Costa envisioned a towering cross blessing the tri-state borderland. In late October of 1933, Father Costa, accompanied by a small group of devoted parishioners, made the arduous, treacherous climb up the unpaved slopes to erect a simple wooden cross. This act of faith resonated deeply with the local community, and by Palm Sunday in 1934, they had hauled the materials up the mountain to replace the wood with a much larger, sturdier iron cross. However, Father Costa's vision was far grander than a simple iron framework. He dreamed of a monumental stone sanctuary that would serve as a permanent beacon of peace, unity, and Christian salvation. In 1937, with the blessing of Bishop Anthony J. Schuler of the Diocese of El Paso, Costa formally proposed the creation of a massive limestone statue. To execute this monumental task, Father Costa turned to his fellow Catalan countryman, the internationally renowned sculptor Urbici Soler Xirpci Manonel. Soler was a master artist who had studied classical sculpture in Munich and Paris, working under the tutelage of Émile Antoine Bourdelle, and had completed extensive anthropological sculpture work across South America and Mexico. Exiled from his native Spain by the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War, Soler found himself uniquely positioned to take on the project, embracing the spiritual gravity of crafting a monument that would literally overlook two nations. The physical construction of the Mount Cristo Rey monument was a monumental feat of Depression-era engineering, artistic dedication, and sheer community willpower. Urbici Soler's dedication to the physical carving of the statue is legendary in borderland history. Once the 9-foot base was completed in May of 1939, Soler began assembling the statue on site, working on a perilous wooden scaffold perched at the very summit of the peak. From 4 a.m. until sunset, day after day through the blistering desert summer, Soler carved the 40 tons of limestone with an air chisel. He employed advanced classical techniques, intentionally elongating the head of Christ so that the proportions would appear anatomically perfect to a pilgrim gazing up from the base of the statue. Remarkably, the monument is not a traditional crucifix. Instead, Soler and Costa designed the statue as a figure of Christ standing in front of the cross, with his palms facing downward in a gesture of universal blessing, grace, and protection over the peoples of Mexico, Texas, and New Mexico. The statue was formally completed and dedicated in late 1939, just in time for the traditional October pilgrimage. In the years following its completion, the spiritual significance of the mountain only deepened. In 1945, at the conclusion of World War II, a massive pilgrimage was organized as a pilgrimage in thanksgiving for victory. Thousands climbed the 800 vertical feet to the summit, dedicating the site as a beacon of Christian peace and a protective fortress against the encroaching fears of global communism and atomic warfare. The monument was viewed as a literal lighthouse of faith, meant to guide humanity away from the horrors of war and toward an eternal, universal brotherhood. Soler himself became so spiritually and physically tethered to the mountain that he built a small home at its base in Anapra, New Mexico, where he lived out the remainder of his life until his death in 1953, forever resting in the shadow of his greatest masterpiece. Today, the spiritual and historical legacy of Mount Cristo Rey is kept alive through the enduring tradition of pilgrimage. The 2.2-mile dirt trail winding up the mountain is lined with 14 iron crosses, representing the traditional Catholic Stations of the Cross. Every year, particularly on Good Friday and on the Feast of Christ the King, in late October, tens of thousands of faithful pilgrims from both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border make the journey. Many walk barefoot or on their knees over the sharp volcanic rock in acts of deep penitence and prayer, uniting the borderland communities in a shared expression of devotion. In recent years, the mountain has also become a focal point of modern historical and political tension, as the U.S. federal government has sought to build border walls across the base of the mountain. The Diocese of Las Cruces has fiercely defended the site, arguing in federal court that the mountain is sacred ground and that its unobstructed access must be preserved for pilgrims. Through lightning strikes, political disputes, and the passage of nearly a century, Mount Cristo Rey remains an unyielding testament to the profound intersection of faith, art, and the resilient human spirit of the borderlands.